Welcome and come on in. We're going to get started in just a few moments, and you got a little taste of what a treat you're in store for this morning as we're joined by Matt Meyer, who's going to be leading us in service. But right now we're entering our virtual sanctuary. This is a multi-congregation Sunday, so come on in and get settled wherever you are. Wherever you find yourself this morning is a sanctuary. This is always a time when I like to switch to grid view on the screen and get a load of some of these beautiful faces that are coming into the room with us in this virtual space. So I encourage you, if you want to take a moment before we start our services, to just scroll through and see some of the folks who are gathering in this sanctuary this morning. You can use that little blue arrow on the side if you want to just kind of scroll through faces and wave. And of course, if you want to leave your camera off and just join us in your jammies from your couch, that's totally fine as well. We're just so glad you're here, so glad you are joining us. For everyone who is joining us on YouTube as well and watching live there, welcome. It is so good to be together this morning, and we're going to get started here in just a moment. Good morning and welcome. I'm the Reverend Julia Hamilton here at the Unitarian Society of Santa Barbara. And I say here, but really here is this virtual sanctuary where we are coming together in amazing ways across congregations this morning. So I bring you greetings from the Unitarian Society, but I'm also joined by the Reverend Nika Eaton Gwynn from Chalice UU in Thousand Oaks. And of course, many of us at the Unitarian Society know Nika as well from the time that she spent here in this congregation. It's so wonderful to be able to share worship with Nika this morning. And welcome to folks from Goleta, the Live Oak congregation, who are joining us while Reverend Tamara Casanova Suzuki takes the Sunday off. And welcome to folks from Ventura. It's wonderful to be together again with you. And I think Reverend Dana Warsnop is going to be joining us from the pews this morning, so she gets to enjoy the service with us as a participant. And of course, it's wonderful to welcome Matt Meyer to our shared worship this morning. Matt is an accomplished Unitarian Universalist musician, a percussionist extraordinaire, as you heard a little bit of, and he is the director of community life at Sanctuary Boston, which is a Unitarian Universalist community in Boston. And I've known Matt many years from when I lived out on the East Coast. So again, through the magic of this technology, of our ability to gather in this virtual sanctuary, we can welcome Matt out here to the West Coast with us this morning. After the service, we are going to be able to break into coffee and conversation with our own congregation. So there'll be a slide and link so everybody can go join your community of choice at coffee hour to see friends and make some new friends. So we invite you to stick around after the service. And right now, I just invite you to take a breath, to set down whatever to-do lists you have going through your head, to allow yourself to be present here as we let the sound of our bowl gong connect us. If you have a chalice or a candle nearby, now is the time when I invite you to light that with us, to kindle that flame wherever you are, as we read our words for chalice lighting, Invitation to Brave Space by Mickey Scott Bay Jones. Together we will create brave space, because there is no such thing as a safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars, and we have all caused wounds. In this space, we seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. We amplify voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. We call each other to more truth and love. We have the right to start somewhere. and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect. This space will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be our brave space together, and we will work on it side by side. At the Unitarian Society, we have a tradition on Sundays that we started on the first Sunday of January of this year, and we call it our Good Things Jar. And every Sunday, we lift up something good in our lives, something good in the world, something that brought you joy, something you learned that sparked your wonder, some place where your heart cracked open. It could be a personal joy, it can be a collective joy, but we're going to go ahead and turn on our chat just for this part of the service. And if you want to type a good thing into our virtual good things jar this morning, we invite you to do so now, something that lifted you up. And then every Sunday, whoever's leading worship finds something good for us to lift up together as a community. And this Sunday, I am going to offer up for our good things jar the fact that we have a brand new lion cub born at the Santa Barbara Zoo. To the first time parents, Felicia and Ralph, we say congratulations to your healthy new cub. And Mama and Cub are going to be spending some time bonding, but this is something that we can look forward to in January, getting a chance to meet this new wonderful addition to our community. So that is our collective good thing, is this new wild life that's coming into our midst that we can celebrate this morning. And I invite you to type into the chat what you would like to celebrate together so that we can share these joys and all grow and expand our hearts together.
Well, our opening song this morning is Blessed Motion by Annie Zylstra. It was written when she was inspired by the words of Martin Prechtel, who spoke of what it was like to survive an earthquake in Guatemala. He spoke of what it was like to see the ground beneath his feet, that which had always been so solid, so permanent, suddenly rise up in motion and in chaos. He said that the myth of believing in solid ground is a myth believed by those who live on the earth rather than as a part of it. I know in recent months, for most of 2020 now, I have felt like I've been trying every day to get some sense of grounding, even while the ground beneath my feet is shifting constantly. If that's true for you, I invite you into the spirit of this song to move with the earth. And for this one and all of our music this morning, I invite you to sing along at home. Even though you're muted and we won't be able to hear each other, that doesn't mean we can't sing together, that we can't breathe together. This is a great time to try out some new harmonies you might not have been so bold to try if others were around. So please join in. The song has a high part that's call and response, and then a low part as well. Pick whichever part you like best, move back and forth between them, or go ahead and make up your own. I believed in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change and the ever-rolling ocean. All moves on in perfect motion. All is change and ever rolling ocean. All moves on. We'll do that low part 2 more times. Perfect motion, all is change and ever rolling ocean, all I believed in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean. I believe in solid ground till I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean. I believe in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean. I believe in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion, and the winds of steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean. I believed in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean. I believed in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion. I'd like to share a story with you all about music, about learning new things. This is a story about a girl called Miriam. Now, Miriam was just about to start the 4th grade, and she was thrilled about it, because 4th grade was the year at her school that all of the students got to learn to play an instrument and play in the school orchestra. Did any of you ever play in the school orchestra? Would you wave your hands a little bit? Play in the band at all? Oh, a bunch of you. Great. So you know the thrill, the terror even, of going into that band room for the first time. On the first day of school, Miriam showed up extra early, and she walked into that orchestra room and she looked around and looked at all of the instruments, wondering which one she would get to play. There was a huge bass drum, beautiful violins, shiny brass trumpets. She saw her teacher, Miss Berman, there, and she said, "Here I am. What instrument do you need me to play in the orchestra?" "Miriam, right?" said Miss Berman. She said, "I think I've got just the instrument for you." And she disappeared into her office and came out a minute later with a tambourine. "A tambourine?" Miriam said. Well, is that even an instrument?" "Of course," said Miss Berman. "Every great orchestra needs a great tambourine player, and you are our tambourine player." Well, Miriam took the tambourine, but for the whole rehearsal, all day long, she had to play the same rhythm over and over. It went like this. It went da 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 da. Can you all try that? Da 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 da. And when she came back the next day, came back to school for the whole day again, for the whole rehearsal, it was that same rhythm over and over. It went da 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 da. And Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the whole rest of the week, it was that same rhythm over and over and over. It went da 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 da. Well, you may have guessed that Miriam wasn't any more excited about the tambourine at the end of the week than she had been at the beginning. So when she went to church with her family that Sunday, in pre-COVID times, of course, she was feeling pretty down about it. She sat in her Sunday school class, and her teacher, Mahesh, noticed the look on her face, and he asked her, She said, I was so excited to start the 4th grade and learn to play an instrument and play in the school orchestra. But I ended up with the tambourine, and I just play the same rhythm all week long. It goes da 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 da. The tambourine, Mahesh said. He said, did you know that where my family is from in southern India, we call the tambourine a kanjira? Can you say kanjira? He said people spend their whole lives learning to master the kanjira because it's a wonderfully beautiful and very complicated instrument. In fact, they teach each other the sounds and the rhythms of it by singing out the syllables, singing out the music that it makes. Takita dum gutadengi na tum tum ta tum. People put the rhythms and the sounds of the kanjira together to make this poetry out of the rhythms of the kanjira. In fact, they write whole books of the poetry of its rhythms. And where I come from, the tambourine, well, it's an instrument for creating that kind of poetry and, well, beauty in the world. Poetry and beauty, Miriam said. That doesn't sound so bad. After church, Miriam was sitting by herself when a family friend, Anna, came and sat with her. Anna remembered. She said, this was the week you were going to learn to play an instrument and play in the school orchestra. You were going to start the 4th grade. How's it going? Well, she said, I ended up with the tambourine and I just played the same rhythm all week long. It goes da 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 da. The tambourine, Anna said. She said, did you know that where my family is from in Brazil, we call the tambourine a pandeiro? Can you say pandeiro? She said, people have been playing the pandeiro for generations in Brazil. In fact, she said, when my ancestors were brought to Brazil as enslaved people, they would play the pandeiro as a way to bring their neighbors and their community together, to sing and dance together, even when times were so difficult. And in fact, they would even use the music of the pandeiro to secretly practice martial arts so that they could protect themselves against the people that held them as slaves. Where I come from, the tambourine is an instrument for safety and for community. Safety and community, Miriam said. Well, that doesn't sound so bad. So Miriam was thinking about all of this when she went back to school the next day. She saw her teacher, Miss Berman, there, and she told her about the kanjira and the pandeiro, about poetry and beauty and safety and community. But she said, I don't know what any of that has to do with me, though. I'm still playing the same rhythm all week long that goes da 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 da. Well, Miss Berman said. She asked Miriam, do you know where your name comes from? Miriam answered, of course I do. Comes from my parents. Well, right, she said, but do you know who Miriam was? She said, in your family's history, there's a story of the ancient Israelites fleeing slavery in Egypt and traveling to a promised land of freedom. And while they were on their way to that promised land, they had a wonderful celebration. And it was a woman named Miriam with her tambourine that got that party started. And in fact, women just like Miriam would play all over Israel and all over the Middle East in ancient times for weddings and celebrations, for festivals and religious gatherings. Miriam, in fact, was one of the first recorded musicians in all of history. So in your family's history, the tambourine was this way of celebrating that journey we're all trying to make towards freedom and towards love. Freedom and love, Miriam said. Well, that sounds pretty good. So Miriam eventually went on to play some of the other instruments in the orchestra. She played a little bit of bass drum and she took some violin lessons and played trumpet for a while. But she always remembered this story of the tambourine, how all around the world and all throughout history, people had taken the simplest of instruments, the most basic tools they had in their hands, and they found ways to use them to shape the world around them, to create poetry and beauty, to foster safety and community, to celebrate the journey we're all trying to make towards love and freedom. And I think that's a little bit of what we do when we gather here on Sunday mornings. We come together not only to remind each other about the values that are most important to us, but to think together and even challenge each other to practice using whatever instruments, whatever tools we may have in our hands to shape the world around us and to create the kind of world that we want to live in together. So thank you for helping me with the story.
Thank you so much, Matt, for that beautiful story. And I just want to say what a joy it is for us all to be together here this morning. It's really wonderful to see all of your faces, new and familiar. So I invite us now to share a time of meditation, reflection, or prayer. First of all, I invite you to bring some awareness to your body. Wriggle, stretch, do what you need to do to be able to sit quietly for a few moments. And then I invite you to feel whatever is supporting you, whether it's your chair that you're sitting on or the bed that you're lying in. Just feel whatever is beneath you, supporting you. And now, if you feel comfortable, I invite you to close your eyes or soften your gaze and place your feet on the ground if that's available to you, or feel your heels up against your mattress. And then drop your shoulders and take a deep breath in and out. If you like, you may bring a soft smile to your face and allow that smile to permeate your lips, your cheeks, your eyes. Bringing a smile to our face can actually change the physiology of our body, so it's a great thing to do while we meditate. And as we spend this time in silence together, I invite you, if you wish, to speak these words silently to yourself as you breathe in and breathe out. And as our beautiful meditation on breathing song, which we're singing at Chalice as our monthly theme song, reminds us, I invite you as you breathe in to say to yourself, breathing in peace. And as you breathe out, say to yourself, breathing out love, just silently in your mind. So breathing in peace and breathing out love. I'm going to ring the chime to mark the beginning and end of our silence.
Every Sunday, we take up an offering to support the work of our congregations. And this Sunday, we are taking up an offering, and we're going to put up a slide which will have links to each of your congregations so you can support your local congregations. But I also know that each of our congregations does work in the wider world, partners with programs and projects that live our values. And when you support the work of your congregation, you're not just supporting this community, one community, or even this gathered community that we've created here on this Sunday morning. Your support actually reaches out into the wider community all around us, puts in motion the values that we hold so dear, and helps build that beloved community that we all long for. So please give as generously as you are able. And go ahead, and we're going to put these links into the chat so that you can click through and support the congregation near you. And we have an affirmation of gratitude and giving. We're going to pull the words up on the screen, and I invite you to read these at home where you are. Please read with me. Let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. Let us be grateful for those who share their gifts with us, for we are enriched by their giving. And let us be grateful even for our needs, so that we may learn from the generosity of others. Thank you.
Oye, mi gente, traemos la fuerza. La libertad es la única bandera. Oye, mi gente, traemos la fuerza. Listen, my people, we bring the power. La libertad es la única bandera. Liberty is the only flag. Oye, mi gente, traemos la fuerza. La libertad es la única bandera. Listen, my people, my condor, my eagle. No human being can never be illegal. Listen, my people, my condor, my eagle. No human being can ever be illegal. Oye, mi gente, traemos la fuerza. La libertad es la única bandera. Oye, mi gente, traemos la fuerza. La libertad es la única bandera. Listen, my people, my condor, my eagle. No human being can ever be illegal. Oye, mi gente, traemos la fuerza. La libertad es la única bandera. Oye, mi gente, traemos la fuerza. La libertad es la única bandera. Listen, my people, my condor, my eagle. No human being can ever be illegal. Listen, my people, my condor, my eagle. No human being can ever be illegal. 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 I start just about every day with a to-do list. Perhaps this is a practice some of you share. Usually it's scribbled in messy handwriting on a Post-it note in the corner of my desk. And well, between you and me, usually it is an overly ambitious to-do list. One of the things that I put on my list most days that I struggle to cross off most days is making time for writing. It's something that's so important to me, something I really want to work on, but it's just something I struggle to make time for. One of my favorite authors, Anne Lamott, talks about how hard it is, in fact, to just sit down every day and put your butt in the chair and write. She says, the discouraging voices will hound you. This is all piffle, they will say. And they may be right. What you are doing may just be practice. But that's okay, because this is how you're going to get better. Some of the best writing advice I ever got was from a teacher who said, for now, don't write. Just write what you would write if you were going to write. I sometimes feel like in all the years since I've gotten that advice, I haven't written anything since. But I have written a lot about what I would write if I did write. You might call this the practice of practicing, learning how to practice. This practicing is hard because when we sit down to write, when we sit down to make music, when we sit down to make the world a better place, well, where we start is so far often from where we want to end up. The world as it is so far from the world as it might be. The person we are can feel so far from the person we would like ourselves to be. The demons of perfectionism stand in the way of good writing, just as they stand in the way of creative risk-taking in general. This is unfortunate because we know that creating a life for yourself that doesn't yet exist requires some creative risk-taking. In times like these, uncertain and anxious times, just being your best self every day, well, it requires setting aside those discouraging voices that hound us. And certainly in times like these, imagining a world of justice and equity and compassion can seem like trying to look so far beyond any horizon that we can see. Well, it means setting aside the voices that say your efforts are just piffle. When the demons of perfectionism show up like this, I try to practice the practicing of showing up for myself and for others. Musicians know about practicing. One of the requirements for all students at Berklee College of Music, where I attended years ago, was 4 semesters of ear training, which is learning to sight sing music just by reading the notes on a page and learning to write down the notation of music just by listening to the songs. Now, when I began school, I knew that there certainly were people who were capable of this kind of magic, but it all seemed like some kind of Harry Potter nonsense to me. Like, you may as well ask me to wave my conductor's baton and make a feather float above my desk. I remember my first day of ear training class when there was a sort of nervous silence among all of us new students. It was intimidating, to be sure, and well, I should say the nervousness was silent except for one student who was quite vocal in his anxiety. This one student interrupted the teacher in the first few minutes because he wanted to make it clear that he was worried the class was going to be too advanced for him. He wanted to clarify that he knew nothing about ear training. The teacher kindly paused his introductions, and he explained that we had all taken entrance exams, and he was sure we'd all been placed in the appropriate class. The teacher tried to continue, but was interrupted again. Well, the man responded, is this the very lowest class? Because I need to be in the very lowest class. Now you could tell our poor teacher started looking around the room kind of sheepishly, not really wanting to answer that, yes, we were in fact a class of the most basic students. He said, well, it is ear training 101, so it is the lowest. There is, I guess, a class for people that have previously failed the 101, but you all are just about the lowest. Now, some of the other students in the class giggled a little bit at this man's anxieties. I was kind of glad to hear, though, that someone was questioning the absurd notion that sight singing even could be taught. I don't know what happened next for that other student, but he never came back to our class. Not because anything we did on that first day was too hard for him, I'm sure of it. But I think he just lacked a belief that improvement was even possible. I kept going, thinking that if generations of students have made it through this before me, I guess it must be possible somehow, even if I can't see the way forward. And I made a commitment to at least practice the material. I've always remembered this other student, though, the one who gave up before he started. It's not just that he didn't try to become a master at ear training. It's that he didn't even try the practicing of it, which always struck me as the real loss. When the discouraging voices hound me, I sometimes think of him, and I remind myself that maybe for now, the work I'm doing is just practice. But practice is how I'm going to get better. This year has been a year of the ground beneath our feet shifting constantly. It's been a time of grieving and a time of imagining new possibilities in the future. It's been a time of uprisings calling for deep change, calling on those in power, which in some ways is all of us, to play a different role, to learn a new tune. Particularly for white folks, this is a time to practice some new skills and learn to play some new roles in our community. It's a time for listening in deeper ways we haven't always done so well before. A time for having some hard conversations we just haven't practiced enough. Fellow white folks, when you hear people of color making demands this year, now is the time to practice amplifying those demands by repeating them in calls to your representatives, to your colleagues, to your family. If you've inherited wealth that was accumulated in a time of systemic racial segregation, which is true of all wealth in this country, it's time to practice giving it away. If your muscle memory has been to call the police when something goes wrong, it's time to practice something different, learning new skills for community safety. I know I won't all of a sudden do all of these things, but I will practice the doing of them. Musicians know as well as anyone that muscle memory is very real, that consistent practicing changes the very structure of our brains, rewiring our circuitry and forging new connections and new possibilities. No one is born a musician. Musicians are just the ones that learned how to practice. Even songbirds need elder birds to sing to them and teach them their tunes. Practice doesn't make music perfect, but it makes music possible. So, dear ones, let us practice the practicing together. Practice showing up for ourselves and each other to build a new world of justice and equity and compassion. Practice won't make the world perfect, but it makes a better world possible. Someday, perhaps someday, I want to be a true expert in justice and compassion and equity, even when anxiety and uncertainty moves in the air like a storm. Someday I want to be well practiced at creating that brave space, even when there is no such thing as safe space. Someday I want to be masterful at amplifying the voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. Someday I hope to be part of transforming our so-called justice system that has hurt so many so deeply. These are daunting tasks, to be sure. On most days, learning to transcribe a symphony seems more manageable. But that's okay, because for now, I don't have to do all of those things. I just need to practice doing what I would do if I were doing them. And so, beloveds, don't promise to be your best self today. Just be the person you would be if you were practicing being your best self. Don't try to rebuild a new world in the image of love this week. Just practice doing what you would do if you had committed to such things. You have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. You have the responsibility to examine what we think we know And so let us start together, let us grow together, and let us practice together, side by side. May it be so. Our closing song is Let the Life I Lead Speak for Me. It's a fairly easy song to catch on to, and so I invite you to sing along as you get it. I'll call out the words. I originally learned this as a traditional Irish folk tune, but it turns out that it probably came from a 70s R&B group. Either way, I invite you to sing along, and please sing with gusto. Let the life I lead speak for me. Let the life I lead speak for me. When I come to the end of the road and I lay down my heavy load, let the life I lead speak for me. Let's try that verse again. Let the life I lead speak for me. Let the life I lead speak for me. When I come to the end of the road and I lay down my heavy load, let the life I lead speak for me. Let the friends I have, let the friends I have speak for me. Let the friends I have speak for me. When I come to the end of the road and I lay down my heavy load, let the friends I have speak for me. Let the work I do, let the work I do speak for me. Let the work I do speak for me. When I come to the end of the road and I lay down my heavy load, let the work I do speak for me. Let the love I share, let the love I share speak for me. Let the love I share speak for me. When I come to the end of the road and I lay down my heavy load, let the love I share speak for me. Let the songs I sing, let the songs I sing speak for me. Let the songs I sing speak for me. When I come to the end of the road and I lay down my heavy load, let the songs I sing speak for me. Let the life I lead, let the life I lead speak for me. Let the life I lead speak for me. When I come to the end of the road and I lay down my heavy load, let the life I lead speak for me.
Dear ones, we are coming to the end of our service together, and it is such a joy to feel each other's company and to know that even while we cannot gather in person, we can gather in these new and remarkable ways that allow us to practice new and remarkable things together. And so please take a moment for our benediction if you want to put your hands over your heart, or if you want to rise in body or spirit, or hold your hands up and open. However it is that you get connected to that larger life that flows and moves within us and among us and between us and beyond us. And as you go out into this beautiful and heartbreaking world, may the light of love shine upon you, out from within you, be gracious unto you, and bring you peace. For this is the day we are given. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. And now Matt is going to lead us in our benediction song, Call Out a Blessing. Let us call out a blessing into the world, my friends.
Call out a blessing, call out a blessing, call out a blessing, call out. Call out a blessing, call out a blessing, call out a blessing, call out. Call out a blessing, call out a blessing, call out a blessing, call out.
Thank you, Matt. We have links that are going to come up here for the coffee hour, the community hour with your congregation. Feel free to join in any one of these congregations for a social time today. We all do it a little bit differently, and it's a wonderful time to get to know some new folks. And we're going to put these links into the chat in just a moment as well, so that you can click on through. This is a great time if you need to go get a cup of coffee and come back and join your congregation as we move into our time of community and conversation together. It's such a joy to be together. Have a wonderful day, everyone. And if you are a member of the Unitarian Society, you can just stay right here. You can take a quick break and come back to this channel. If you're a member of Ventura, Goleta, or Chalice, Live Oak, go ahead and click through. We'll take a few minutes to let you all kind of sort yourselves into the congregations across our communities. So go in peace, everyone, and it's wonderful to be together. I'll see you on the other side.